Gutenberg and the printing press. We have those two names together, but Gutenberg had a team. Gutenberg had a financial backer that, by the way, ended up suing him and taking his technology and all that. But there's always multiple people involved in it. So organizations that are like, I need the lone genius to come in and solve all my innovation problems will be waiting forever because there is no such thing. Every story has heroes. Go and support them as much as you can. And then the final lesson is that innovation requires patient perseverance, often over long periods of time. So I mentioned Pampers very quickly. Here is the short version of the Pampers story. 1954, the Exploratory Development Division is set up. 1956, the effort to create Pampers, Bob Duncan as its leader, is commissioned. 1958, it fails its first test market because the product quality is too low. 1960, it fails its now third test market because the price point is too high. 1962, the development team goes on a fishing trip and says, we thought we were going to come up with a premium price disposable diaper. We got to slash the price by 40%. That's the only way we're going to succeed. 1964, they finally kind of succeed, though it takes longer than they think. 1965, they launch under the brand Pampers. 1970, dominate the market. It goes on to be the biggest brand in P&G's history, first brand across $10 billion in sales. Not an overnight success. There are no overnight successes. People say the pace of innovation is accelerating. Surely true, but it still requires patient perseverance over long periods of time. If you can't go through those twists and turns and false starts and fumbles and occasional failures, you will never succeed. So those lessons are very persistent across the case studies.
One of the more interesting ideas in the book is about the nature of innovation. You say that, quote, technology develops faster than people's lives change to adapt to the technology. And then you go on to explain that that dynamic causes companies to overshoot their customers' needs, which creates opportunities for other firms to offer a similar product at a lower price point, basically disruption, what we were talking about. Where do you see that happening today, and how can people use your book to find such opportunities for themselves, or managers, businesses?
Yeah, so one of the ways I would always illustrate this point, just at a broad level before I get into specifics, I say just imagine the last time you were in a hotel room and you picked up a remote control. Somewhere there's an engineer who thought that 49th button, that was really going to be the one that improved the user experience. But for most of us, you're like, I'm not going to push any of these buttons. I don't know what they do. I don't care. There's too many features in it. I'll take them, but I don't want to pay for them. So then Apple, when it comes out with its Apple TV, it basically has 4 buttons on it. And it's super simple, easy to use, and elegant. And that's what people wanted. They wanted something that was easier to use versus something that had more features and functionality packed into it. So I think that's a pretty easy way to remember it. Where do you see this happening right now? Well, as we're recording this, the advertising industry has just gotten back from its annual love affair to itself at Cannes, where it said, aren't we great? We're making ads that are even more creative than they ever were before. Forget this technology stuff. Humans are doing amazing things. And I'm sure it's true that humans are doing amazing things, but most advertisement that's done today is algorithmic, programmatic, simple stuff that is done through algorithms and machines. So making something that has even higher production value, that has even better actors in it, even better live action things, the industry itself might care about it, but you and I and the people who are actually advertising products don't really care about it. Mm-hmm. You can look at other examples that are maybe a little bit more tragic to think about. Look at what's going on in the world of defense. So in many countries, people were building bigger and bigger planes and submarines and so on. And as we've seen very sadly in the conflict in Ukraine, it's very affordable drones that have changed the face of warfare. So it's not the super complicated stuff that has features that'll probably and hopefully never get used. It's the stuff that is simple, adaptable, and flexible that is really changing the way that people are fighting wars. That's not a happy form of innovation, but I think is another example of the principles in action. How do you use all this stuff? Well, the most important thing always, anytime you're thinking about innovation, is that second behavior I mentioned for Julia Child, customer obsession. The challenge that many organizations run into is they look at the world through their eyes. And of course, the 49th button is a great additional button. They forget that ultimately they're serving somebody. So the trick is to look at it through the eyes of the consumer, customer, channel partner, whoever you're trying to serve, and say, What is the problem they're trying to solve? What is the fundamental job they're trying to get done? And is this thing I'm thinking about doing, will it help them get the job done? If we weren't doing it this way, could we do it in a completely different way? Is there something in the emerging technologies that are out there, additive manufacturing, things in smart health, things that go on in cryptocurrency, whatever? Are there things out there that might allow us to compete in a very different way, that might allow us, in fact, to go and disrupt? That's the way I would think.